Hi guys, today I'm going to show you how to make Azul from Disney's Twisted Wonderland out of polymer clay. To make the gray color for his body, you're going to need black, white, and purple clay. Once you're done mixing your clay, you want to roll it into a ball. To make things easier, I got a small flat surface to put it down on. Next up, you want to take some black clay and roll it out. Then you want to cut out a strip. You then want to take the black strip of clay and put it around the base of the gray ball. This is the black part of the suit. Next up is the bow tie. First I flattened out some purple clay. I then cut out 2 equally sized trapezoids. These will be either side of the bow. Just out of curiosity, let me know in the comment section down below, who is your favorite Disney Twisted Wonderland character? Once I'm done cutting out the pieces, I round out their edges. Then taking a small strip of purple, I attached either side. Next up, I flattened out some white clay. I then cut out a thin strip. Then I cut out 2 small triangles. Once I'd cut the pieces out, I smoothed them out and put them on top of the bow tie. This is to represent the top of the collar. Off camera, I then took 2 white strips of clay and put them on top of the black. Once that was done, I took my dotting tool and made holes for the eyes. I then used 2 pieces of black clay for the eyes. You may have noticed that I switched to a tile. This was because it was smaller. Now that the eyes are done, we're going to take a small piece of black clay and roll it out into a very thin wire. This is going to be used for the mouth. I tried to place it on his face so that way it looked like he was smirking. Once that was all done, I added the eye pin. If you don't want it to be a charm, you just don't add the eye pin. Now for my favorite part, the hat. Take a little bit of black clay and make it into a semi-triangular shape. Then, taking my dotting tool, I went in and made large indents on all sides except for the bottom. For the bottom part of the hat, I first flattened out some black clay. I think my background music's trying to overpower me. Once I was happy with its thickness, I placed the top part of the hat onto it and outlined where I wanted the brim of the hat to be. I then cut it out and smoothed out all the edges. Once I was happy with the bottom, I put the 2 pieces together. For the rim of the hat, I took some light purple and rolled it out into a very thin strip. Next, I used my needle tool to take the piece of purple clay and put it around the base of the hat. As you can see, this is a little bit harder said than done. Now that most of the hat is done, I went ahead and stuck it on his head. Now for the tiny little bow on his hat. I took some more of the light purple and rolled it out and then flattened it. I then used my needle pointer tool to trace out the size and shape of the bow. After cutting it out and smoothing the edges, I placed it onto the hat. For the tiny little shell on the hat, I took some darker purple clay and rolled it out and then kind of coiled it up. I then also took my needle tool and kind of made small designs on it. And then I stuck it on the hat. Unfortunately, my camera didn't want to focus while doing the hair, but just to get the simple portion of it, I took white clay and slowly rolled it out into pointed shapes and then placed it under the hat. Using photo reference, I did my best to make it look like Azul's hair. And let me just say, oh boy, this part was a nightmare. I do like how it turned out though. Next up, a gold contract. First you want to take some yellow clay and roll it out. You may be questioning why I use such a fluorescent yellow, but you'll see in a minute. Once your clay is rolled out, you want to cut out a nice long strip. I then rolled the edges to give it more of a paper look. To give my little contract a gold shine, I'm using this eyeshadow that I got at 5 and Below. So I actually have made 3 contracts before this to try and test out all my different options, and what turned out the best was using a very pastel yellow with this powder. A color darker ended up making it look sort of bronze. Make sure when applying that you get the entire contract. Now, as you can see by my finger and hand, this ended up being very messy, so once I was done the contract, I baked the base part of Azul and the contract so that way they didn't get messed up. The contract still ended up shedding a whole lot of glitter. And last but not least, we're going to make the tentacles. What I did was I took a large clump of black clay and started rolling out kind of like slivers of it. In hindsight, I should have just cut out 8 pieces of equal sized black clay and rolled them out into tentacle shapes. That probably would have been faster. But anyway, once that huge waste of time was over, I did end up with mostly equally sized tentacles. So the first thing that I did is I decided where I wanted to put the contract into his tentacles. I also ended up getting a bunch of glitter all over this tentacle, still shedding glitter everywhere. The first 2 had a lot of thought put into them, and the last 6 I kind of just smacked onto the back of him. Since all the clay work is done, I baked him. Once he was done baking, I also added his little beauty mark. I think that's what that is. I also added the writing onto the contract, all using my needle pointy tool. The writing on the contract ended up being a little bit thicker than I wanted it to be, but I still think it probably turned out better than if I had used clay. Next, we're gonna paint some suckers. That sounds dumb. Anyway, taking my purple paint, I went ahead and after stirring it up because it was really liquidy, I took my needle tool and slowly started painting the underneath of each of the tentacles. So this was really easy at the bottom, but as soon as you started getting to the top with all the curlicues, the paint ended up getting places that you didn't want it to go. But the nice thing is you could take black paint and paint over these spots to the point where you wouldn't see them, but it still kind of made it a little difficult. I was going to originally make the bottoms purple with clay, but oh boy, that was a couple wasted hours. When painting the bottom, I actually had to look up what the bottom of an octopus looked like because I had no idea what to do here. Even though this part is kind of long, I thought it was worth keeping in here because this is the only tentacle that I had where the bottom was actually curling inward, and I thought it was worth showing you how I at least would paint it. P.S. on that statement, it may be actually curling outward. I don't really know how you would say that. Let me know in the comment section if you'd like to see more Twisted Wonderland related content on my channel, or if you would like me to make a charm themed after a particular dorm or character. Moving on to other tentacles. Don't worry though, I did not show me painting every single one of them. For the actual little suction cups on the bottom, I mixed some white clay into my already pre-poured purple clay, and after a little bit of trial and error, I did actually end up using a toothpick to do this. Now that that's done, it's time to move on to the glaze. When using UV resin, I suggest wearing gloves all the time because there are a lot of warnings in the container saying about how you shouldn't get it on your hands. Using a brush, you want to make sure you get into all those cracks and crevices with the hair and tentacles with the UV resin. Cure with a UV light or the sun, and you're done. If you're still here, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit all notifications.